It was a bustling Friday evening in the heart of New York City, and Le Jardin, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, was alive with the hum of conversation and the clinking of fine china. The restaurant was a sanctuary of elegance, its walls adorned with tasteful art and its tables set with pristine white linens and gleaming silverware. The soft glow of chandeliers cast a warm light over the dining room, where waiters in crisp white shirts moved with practiced precision, their movements as fluid as a well-rehearsed ballet. The air was filled with the tantalizing aroma of French cuisine, rich sauces, buttery pastries, and the faintest hint of truffle oil. The clientele was a mix of celebrities, politicians, and business moguls, their laughter and murmured conversations creating a symphony of sophistication. It was a place where deals were made, relationships were forged, and status was silently affirmed. At the entrance, a young man stepped inside, his presence unassuming yet dignified. Barron Trump, 17 years old, was dressed in a simple but well-tailored navy blazer and dark jeans. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine, and his hair was neatly combed. But there was nothing ostentatious about his appearance. He had chosen to dine alone, seeking a quiet evening away from the constant scrutiny that came with his family name. For once, he just wanted to be Barron, not the son of a former president, not a public figure, but a young man enjoying a meal in peace. He approached the host stand, where Mark, a sharply dressed but visibly arrogant host, stood scrolling through reservations on a tablet. Mark was in his late 20s, with slicked-back hair and a demeanor that suggested he considered himself far more important than his role warranted. He glanced up as Barron approached, his eyes sweeping over him with a look of thinly veiled judgment. "Good evening," Barron said politely, his voice calm and measured. "I'd like a table for one, please." Mark raised an eyebrow, his tone dripping with condescension. "Do you have a reservation?" Barron shook his head. "No, I don't, but I noticed there are a few empty tables. Would it be possible to?" Mark cut him off with a dismissive wave. "I'm afraid we're fully booked. You'll have to try another time." Barron hesitated, glancing at the visibly empty tables. The dining room was far from full. At least a third of the tables were unoccupied, their chairs neatly tucked in and their settings untouched. "Are you sure?" he asked, his tone still polite but firm. "It looks like there's plenty of space." Mark's lips curled into a smirk, his eyes narrowing as if he found Barron's persistence amusing. "Those tables are reserved for our regulars," he said, emphasizing the last word as if it were a badge of honor. "I suggest you make a reservation next time." Barron's cheeks flushed, but he remained calm. He had grown accustomed to being judged, to being underestimated, but it still stung. For a moment, he considered pushing back, but he quickly decided against it. Arguing with someone like Mark wouldn't change anything. It would only make the situation worse. "I understand," Barron said quietly, his voice steady despite the frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "Thank you for your time." As he turned to leave, Mark muttered under his breath, loud enough for Barron to hear, "Kids these days think they can just waltz in here like they own the place." Barron paused, his jaw tightening, but he chose not to engage. Instead, he pulled out his phone and sent a quick text to his mother. "Mom, something just happened at Le Jardin. Can you come?" Less than 30 minutes later, the atmosphere in Le Jardin shifted dramatically as the doors swung open and Melania Trump walked in, dressed in a sleek black dress that hugged her figure elegantly, paired with stiletto heels that clicked softly against the polished floor. She exuded an air of quiet authority. Her platinum blonde hair was styled impeccably, and her sunglasses, though unnecessary indoors, added an extra layer of mystique. All eyes turned to her as she made her way to the host stand, her expression calm but steely, like a storm brewing beneath a serene surface. The hum of conversation in the dining room dipped momentarily as patrons recognized her. Whispers rippled through the room. "Is that Melania Trump? What's she doing here?" Even the waitstaff paused mid-step, their trays momentarily forgotten as they took in the sight of the former First Lady. Mark, who had been smirking moments earlier while scrolling through his tablet, suddenly looked as though he'd seen a ghost. His face paled, and his earlier arrogance evaporated in an instant. He straightened his posture, his hands fumbling nervously as he tried to regain his composure. "Good evening," Melania said, her voice cool and measured, each word enunciated with precision. "I'd like to speak with the manager. Please." Mark swallowed hard, his throat dry. Of course. One moment." "Ma'am," he stammered, his voice cracking slightly. He turned on his heel and hurried toward the back office, his earlier swagger replaced by a frantic urgency. Sophia, the restaurant's manager, was in the middle of reviewing the evening's reservations when Mark burst in, his face flushed and his breathing uneven. "Sophia, you need to come out here. Now." Sophia looked up, her brow furrowing. "What's wrong?" "It's Melania Trump," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's here, and she's asking for you." Sophia's eyes widened, and she quickly set down her papers. "What does she want?" Mark hesitated, his face a mask of guilt. I think it's about her son." Sophia's stomach dropped. She had a sinking feeling she knew exactly what this was about. Without another word, she smoothed her blazer and followed Mark back to the host's stand, her mind racing. As she approached, Melania turned to face her, her gaze piercing and unwavering. Sophia extended her hand, her smile professional but tinged with nervousness. "Good evening, Mrs. Trump. I'm Sophia, the manager. How can I assist you?" Melania didn't take her hand. Instead, she folded her arms, her expression calm but firm. "My son, Barron, was here earlier. He was told there were no tables available, despite the fact that your dining room is half empty. He was also treated with disrespect by your host. I'd like an explanation." Sophia's eyes widened in alarm, and she shot a quick glance at Mark, who was standing a few feet away, looking like he wanted to disappear. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Trump," she said, her voice sincere. "That's completely unacceptable. Let me address this immediately." Melania's gaze didn't waver. "I would appreciate that. My son came here for a quiet evening, not to be judged or turned away because of someone's assumptions." Sophia nodded, her mind racing as she tried to formulate a response. "Mrs. Trump, I can't apologize enough for what happened. This is not the standard we hold ourselves to at Le Jardin. Please, allow me to make this right." Sophia turned to Mark, her voice sharp and unyielding. The earlier professionalism in her tone was now edged with a steely resolve. "Is this true? Did you refuse to seat Mrs. Trump's son?" Mark stammered, his earlier arrogance replaced by sheer panic. His hands fidgeted nervously at his sides, and his eyes darted between Sophia and Melania, as if searching for an escape route that didn't exist. I didn't realize who he was," he said, his voice trembling. "He didn't have a reservation, and I thought—" "You thought what?" Sophia interrupted, her voice rising slightly. She took a step closer to him, her gaze piercing. "That you could judge a customer based on their appearance? That you could decide who is worthy of a table here and who isn't? That's not how we operate here, Mark. Not now. Not ever." Mark's face flushed a deep shade of red, his earlier bravado crumbling under the weight of Sophia's words. He hung his head, unable to meet her eyes. "I'm sorry," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "It won't happen again." Sophia's expression softened slightly, but her tone remained firm. "It better not. This kind of behavior is unacceptable, and it reflects poorly on all of us. You're lucky Mrs. Trump is gracious enough to give us a chance to make this right." She turned back to Melania, her demeanor shifting to one of sincere apology. "Mrs. Trump, I deeply regret what happened. This is not the standard we hold ourselves to at Le Jardin, and I can assure you it will not happen again. Please allow us to make it right. We'd be honored to have you and your son dine with us tonight, on the house." Melania studied Sophia for a moment, her expression calm but thoughtful. She appreciated the manager's quick response and genuine remorse, but she also knew that actions spoke louder than words. "Thank you," she said finally, her voice measured but not unkind. "I appreciate your willingness to address this. However, I hope this serves as a lesson, not just for your staff, but for everyone here. No one should be judged or turned away because of how they look or who they are. Sophia nodded, her respect for Melania growing. You're absolutely right, Mrs. Trump. This is a wake-up call for all of us. I'll be implementing new training programs to ensure that every member of our team understands the importance of treating all customers with respect and dignity. Melania's expression softened, and she gave a small nod of approval. That's good to hear. I'm glad you're taking this seriously. Mark, who had been standing awkwardly to the side, stepped forward, his face still flushed with shame. He cleared his throat, his voice shaky but sincere. Mrs. Trump, I want to apologize personally. I was completely out of line, and I'm truly sorry for how I treated your son. It was unprofessional and disrespectful, and I hope you can forgive me. Melania regarded him for a moment, her gaze steady but not unkind. Apology accepted, she said quietly. But remember, Mark, kindness and respect cost nothing. Treat others the way you would want to be treated. Mark nodded, his eyes downcast. I will. Thank you, ma'am. Sophia gestured toward the dining room, her smile warm and inviting. Mrs. Trump, if you'd like, I'll personally escort you and your son to the best table in the house. And please, let us know if there's anything else we can do to make your evening more enjoyable. Melania nodded, her expression softening further. Thank you, Sophia. I appreciate your hospitality. As Sophia led Melania to the table, the dining room buzzed with quiet murmurs. The other patrons, who had been watching the scene unfold, exchanged glances of approval. It wasn't every day that they witnessed such a public display of accountability, and grace. The incident at Le Jardin didn't end with an apology and a complimentary meal. It became a catalyst for change, not just within the restaurant, but far beyond its elegant walls. Sophia, the manager, knew that restoring the restaurant's reputation required more than just words. It demanded action. Within days, she implemented new training programs for the staff, focusing on inclusivity, empathy, and the importance of treating every customer with respect, regardless of their appearance or background. The training sessions were intense and eye-opening. Role-playing exercises forced the staff to confront their biases and consider how their actions might affect others. Sophia brought in guest speakers, including diversity and inclusion experts, to share their insights and experiences. Mark, though initially resistant, began to see the value in the training. He realized that his behavior had been not only unprofessional, but also deeply hurtful, and he was determined to do better. Word of the restaurant's commitment to change spread quickly. Local news outlets picked up the story, highlighting Le Jardin's efforts to turn a negative incident into an opportunity for growth. Social media buzzed with praise for Sophia's leadership and the restaurant's willingness to take accountability. Customers returned, not just for the exquisite food, but to support a business that valued kindness and respect. Barron's experience at Le Jardin resonated with people far beyond the restaurant's clientele. His story, shared by Melania in a heartfelt Instagram post, went viral. The hashtag #RespectForAll began trending, with thousands of users sharing their own stories of discrimination and acts of kindness. For many, Barron's quiet dignity in the face of disrespect became a symbol of resilience and grace. Barron, though reluctant to be in the spotlight, recognized the power of his platform. He decided to use his voice to advocate for kindness and equality. In an interview with a local news station, he spoke candidly about the incident and its impact on him. What happened at Le Jardin was disappointing, but it also taught me an important lesson, Barron said, his voice calm but earnest. No one should be judged or treated unfairly because of how they look or where they come from. Kindness costs nothing, but its impact can be life-changing. His words struck a chord, inspiring others to reflect on their own actions and attitudes. Schools and community organizations began using Barron's story as a teaching tool, encouraging young people to stand up against discrimination and embrace inclusivity. For Barron, the incident was a turning point. He had always been aware of the privileges that came with his family name, but he had never fully understood the responsibility that accompanied it. The experience at Le Jardin made him realize that his actions and his family's influence could be used to make a positive impact. He began volunteering at local organizations, working to support underprivileged youth and promote inclusivity. One of his first initiatives was partnering with a nonprofit that provided mentorship and resources to at-risk teenagers. Barron spent weekends at community centers, playing basketball with the kids and listening to their stories. He was struck by their resilience and determination, and he knew he wanted to do more to help. With Melania's support, Barron launched a campaign called Respect for All, which aimed to raise awareness about discrimination and promote kindness in schools and communities. The campaign included workshops, social media challenges, and fundraising events to support organizations working toward equality and inclusion. The ripple effect of Barron's experience continued to grow. Jardin became a model for other businesses, demonstrating how accountability and a commitment to change could transform a negative incident into an opportunity for growth. Sophia was invited to speak at industry conferences, where she shared the lessons she had learned and encouraged other managers to prioritize inclusivity and respect. Mark, too, was changed by the experience. He became one of the restaurant's most dedicated employees. Known for his warmth and professionalism, he often shared his story with new staff members, using it as a cautionary tale and a reminder of the importance of treating everyone with kindness.